The night was calm, but inside the crowded cafe the noise of laughter and voices was loud. In the corner, a group of friends sat together, teasing one another as young people often did. Among them was Arman, a confident boy who loved challenges, and opposite him sat Meher, a quiet girl with soft eyes who rarely spoke. Arman always believed no one could ever outsmart him. He liked to call himself the king of bets. That evening, when the group gathered, a small conversation turned into a challenge. Arman smirked and said loudly, "No girl can ever beat me in a bet. They only talk, but when it comes to action, they fail." His friends laughed and clapped at his bold words. Meher, who had been silently listening, raised her head. For the first time, her calm face showed a spark of determination. "Do you really believe that, Arman?" she asked softly. Arman laughed. "Of course. I have never lost a bet. And surely not to a girl." The table grew quiet. Everyone waited for what would happen next. Meher, usually shy, leaned a little forward. "Then let us see," she said. "I will take your bet." The friends cheered, half surprised and half excited. No one expected Meher to speak in this way. Arman raised his eyebrows. He thought she was joking, but her eyes told him she was serious. "All right," he said confidently. "Tell me, what's the bet?" Meher thought for a moment. She wanted something that would test not only courage but also patience. "I bet," she finally said, "that I can spend the next 30 days without showing anger, without complaining, and without lying. No matter what happens, I will control myself. If I win, you will admit in front of everyone that you were wrong. If I lose, you can ask me for anything, and I will do it." The group gasped. It sounded impossible. To live 30 days without anger, without lies, and without complaints, it was more than just a game. It was a battle with one's own self. Arman smiled, a little amused. "Fine," he said. "But remember, you chose this yourself. 30 days, and I will be watching you." From that day, the bet began. The first week was easy on the surface, but inside Meher's heart, it was difficult. Every morning she reminded herself of the promise she had made. At home, when her younger brother broke her favorite book, she felt anger rising. But she bit her tongue and smiled instead. When her mother asked if she was tired after school, she wanted to complain, but she quietly said, "I'm fine." At college, her friends teased her, trying to make her angry. Arman too would test her with small tricks. Once, he accidentally spilled water on her notebook. She looked at him, her lips tight, but instead of shouting, she took a tissue and cleaned the page. Everyone stared in surprise. Arman laughed. "You are just pretending. Soon, you will break." But Meher only said, "Wait and see." As the days passed, something strange began to happen. People started noticing her calm nature. Teachers praised her for her patience. Friends began to respect her. Even strangers felt peace when they spoke to her. Slowly, the shy girl who no one paid attention to started becoming an example for others. But inside, it was not easy. At night, Meher would sit alone and cry quietly. She wanted to scream sometimes, to let out her feelings. But she remembered her promise. This bet was no longer just about winning against Arman. It had become a fight against her own weaknesses. Arman, on the other hand, watched with growing disbelief. Every day, he tried new ways to make her lose. He told her lies to confuse her, he teased her in front of others, he even spread small rumors. But she stayed calm, her face soft, her voice steady. One afternoon, after a tiring exam, Meher was walking back when Arman caught up with her. "Why are you doing this?" he asked suddenly. She looked at him. Because sometimes, a person has to prove that silence is stronger than noise. Patience is stronger than anger. And truth is stronger than lies. Arman did not reply. For the first time, he felt a strange respect for her. Yet deep inside, he still believed she would fail. By the end of the third week, Meher had changed. She was still the same girl, but her heart had become stronger. People began calling her the calm one. Some even started to follow her example. And Arman, though he never admitted it, was slowly losing his confidence. But the story was far from over. Because in the last week, something unexpected was waiting for Meher, something that would test her beyond anything she had faced so far. And this time, it was not just a game. The last week of the bet began with a heavy sky. Dark clouds gathered outside, as if they knew something was about to happen. Meher woke up early that Monday morning, her heart restless. She told herself, just a few more days, and it will be over. But deep inside, she felt a strange fear. She did not know why. At college, Arman watched her carefully. He still could not believe she had survived 3 weeks without losing her patience. To him, it felt impossible. Maybe she is just lucky, he whispered to a friend. This week will break her. I will make sure of it. Arman planned tricks with his friends. They decided to test her in ways she could not expect. During lunch, one boy pushed her tray, and all the food spilled on her clothes. Everyone laughed. Meher froze for a moment. She wanted to shout, but then she remembered her promise. She took a deep breath, wiped her clothes, and quietly walked away. Later, Arman himself stood in her path. You think you're winning? He asked. His voice was sharp, mocking. You are just pretending. No one can hide their true self for so long. Meher looked into his eyes. She spoke calmly, maybe the problem is not me, Arman. Maybe you never tried to see the strength inside people like me. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He stepped back, speechless. For a moment, he felt like the ground beneath him was shaking. That evening, when Meher returned home, another test waited for her. Her father was angry because she forgot to bring his medicine from the store. His voice rose, and harsh words filled the air. Her little brother cried. Normally, Meher would have argued or complained, but this time she stayed quiet. She touched her father's hand and said softly, I'm sorry, Baba. I'll go now and get it. Her father stopped. He looked at her differently, his anger slowly melting. That night, he told her mother, she has changed. Our Meher has become stronger than us all. But fate was not done with her. On Wednesday, something happened that truly shook her heart. She found her best friend, Sana, crying in the corridor. When Meher asked what happened, Sana whispered, Arman told everyone that you are pretending. He says you act innocent, but in truth you are fake. People believe him. They are laughing at you behind your back. Meher felt pain like a knife inside her chest. Her face turned pale. She wanted to run to Arman and scream. She wanted to tell everyone the truth. But she remembered the bet. Tears filled her eyes, but she swallowed them. She held Sana's hand and said, if they believe lies, it is their choice. The truth does not need noise. It stands quietly, and one day, everyone sees it. Sana hugged her tightly, amazed at her strength. Meanwhile, Arman watched from a distance. He thought his plan was working, but when he saw Meher's calm face, something inside him broke. He expected her to fight back, to lose control, to show weakness. But instead, she carried herself with dignity. He had never seen such strength in silence. By Thursday, the whispers around college began to change. Some students realized Arman's tricks and started respecting Meher even more. Teachers called her an example of patience. Even those who laughed before now felt ashamed. But Friday brought the hardest test of all. That morning, Meher received a phone call. Her mother had fainted at home and was taken to the hospital. Panic rushed through her veins. She wanted to cry, to break down, to let go of everything. Yet, she reminded herself of the promise she had made. She held her tears, prayed quietly, and rushed to the hospital. There, she sat beside her unconscious mother, holding her hand. Her father and brother were scared, but Meher spoke gently to comfort them. She will be fine. We must have faith. Hours passed before the doctor came out and said her mother was safe now. Relief washed over her, but she realized how close she was to breaking. That night, sitting by her mother's bed, she whispered, "This is not just a bet anymore. It is teaching me who I really am." Arman heard about her mother the next day. For the first time, guilt touched his heart. He remembered how he mocked her, how he spread lies, how he pushed her to the edge. He realized she was not playing a game, she was fighting battles inside and outside, yet she never lost her calm. On Sunday, the 30th day finally arrived. The whole group gathered in the cafe, just like the first day. Everyone looked at Meher with quiet respect. Arman sat across from her, his eyes uncertain. Meher did not speak. She only waited. She knew the moment had come when truth would stand on its own. And as silence filled the cafe, everyone waited for Arman's words. Would he finally accept his defeat? Or would his pride still hold him back? The air was heavy, and in that silence, even the sound of a clock ticking felt like thunder. The cafe was crowded, but inside their small circle, silence ruled. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Arman. His usual confident smile was missing. He looked restless, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. For the first time, the king of bets was unsure of what to say. Meher sat quietly across from him. She did not demand victory. She did not speak even a single word. Her calmness itself was louder than any voice. People around the table whispered to each other, waiting for Arman's decision. Finally, he leaned forward and said, "You really did it. 30 days, and not once did you lose control." The group clapped softly, but Arman raised his hand to silence them. His voice trembled. "I don't understand. How could you do it? How could you stay so calm when I tried everything to break you?" Meher lifted her eyes, her voice gentle but firm. "Because it was never about defeating you, Arman. It was about defeating myself. My anger, my weakness, my pain. That was the real enemy." Her words struck everyone deeply. Even those who once mocked her now felt respect growing in their hearts. Arman lowered his gaze. His pride, which once stood like a wall, began to crack. He remembered how he had lied, how he had laughed at her, how he had spread rumors. Yet, she never answered with anger. She carried herself with dignity every single time. "I was wrong," he admitted at last, his voice heavy. "I thought patience was weakness. But today, you proved that patience is strength. You won, Meher. And I," his voice broke. "I lost." Gasps filled the cafe. No one expected Arman to say those words. 4 years, he had been undefeated. But now, in front of everyone, he accepted defeat to the one girl he underestimated the most. Meher's lips curved into a small smile. "It was never about winning or losing, Arman. Sometimes life gives us chances to discover who we are. This was mine." Everyone clapped louder this time. But while the room filled with noise, Arman's heart grew heavier. He thought this would be just a game, a simple challenge. But it had changed him in ways he never imagined. That night, Arman lay awake on his bed. His mind replayed every moment of the last month. He saw Meher's silent strength, her patience, her tears she never showed. He felt a strange pain inside. For the first time, he questioned himself. What have I been doing all this time? Mocking others, hiding behind pride, calling it strength? The next day, he went to meet her at college. She was sitting under a tree, reading a book. For a moment, he just stood there, watching her. She looked peaceful, as if the chaos of the world could never touch her. "Meher," he said softly. She looked up, surprised to see him alone. "Yes." He took a deep breath. "I need to apologize. Not just for the bet, but for everything. For insulting you, for making you cry, for spreading lies. I don't know why you didn't hate me. I don't know why you never shouted back. But I want you to know. I'm sorry." Meher closed her book slowly. She studied his face for a moment, then said, "People make mistakes, Arman. What matters is whether they learn from them. If you truly regret, then change. Not for me, not for the world, change for yourself." Her words pierced his heart like arrows, yet they healed at the same time. He nodded. "I'll try." Days passed, and something unexpected began to happen. Arman started changing. He spoke more kindly. He stopped mocking others. Even his friends noticed the difference. But it wasn't easy. His temper rose many times, but then he remembered Meher's face, calm and steady. Slowly, he began to fight his own battles with patience. One afternoon, he saw a group of boys bullying a younger student. Before, he would have joined in the laughter. But now, he stepped forward and stopped them. "Leave him alone," he said firmly. The boys stared at him, shocked. "Arman, the one who once led such acts, was now defending the weak. When Meher heard about it, she smiled quietly. She never told him, but she was proud. However, life is not always kind. Just when things began to settle, another storm appeared on the horizon. One evening, Arman received a call. His father had collapsed at work and was in the hospital. Panic took over him. He rushed there, his heart racing, his mind spinning. For the first time, he felt the weight of helplessness. He cried in the waiting room, his pride shattered completely. And then, Meher appeared. She had heard the news from a mutual friend. She sat beside him silently, not speaking, just offering her presence. Arman looked at her, tears streaming down his face. "I'm scared," he whispered. Meher placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "You are learning, Arman. Fear and pain are part of life. But if you face them with patience, they will not destroy you. They will make you stronger." In that moment, Arman realized something. The girl he once mocked had now become his teacher, his guide, and maybe something more. But he also knew, life was not done testing either of them. Something darker, something unexpected, was waiting ahead. And this time, it would not be just about bets or pride. It would be about choices that could change their lives forever. The days after Arman's father's illness passed slowly. His father was still weak, but doctors said he would recover with time. Arman spent most of his hours at the hospital, sitting quietly beside his father's bed. For a boy who once lived with pride and laughter, this silence was new. He realized how fragile life was. Meher often visited too. Sometimes she brought food for Arman, sometimes she simply sat near his mother to give her company. She did not speak much, but her presence was enough to calm the broken family. Slowly, a quiet bond began to grow between her and Arman. One evening, when the sun was setting, Arman and Meher stood outside the hospital. The sky was painted with shades of orange and purple. Arman looked at her and said softly, "You know, Meher, if you weren't here, I don't know how I would have faced this." Meher smiled gently. "You would have faced it, Arman. You are stronger than you think. Sometimes life gives us pain not to break us, but to show us our strength." Arman stared at her for a long moment. Something new was growing in his heart, something he had never felt before. But before he could speak, Meher looked away and said, "Let's go inside. Your father might wake up." Days turned into weeks, and as Arman's father slowly recovered, Arman too began to change completely. He became more serious, more thoughtful. His friends noticed it and teased him. "The king of bets has become silent these days," one of them joked. But Arman only smiled. "Sometimes silence teaches more than noise," he replied, remembering Meher's words. It seemed as if everything was slowly falling into place. But fate had a way of testing people just when they felt safe. One afternoon, a rumor spread in college. A large business company had announced a scholarship for the best student. Everyone knew Meher deserved it. Her grades, her discipline, and her character were stronger than anyone else's. But another name appeared on the list of final candidates, Arman. No one understood how. Arman had never been serious about studies. Some whispered that his family's contacts helped him get in. Others said it was pure luck. But to Meher, it felt strange. She never cared much about titles, but this time, she saw the look in Arman's eyes. He wanted the scholarship, not for pride, but for his family. His father's illness had left them weak financially, and this scholarship could change everything. Meher stood at a crossroad. If she won, it would be fair, because she worked hard. If Arman won, it would help his family, but people would call it unfair. The competition was set for 1 month later. It was not just about exams, it included projects, presentations, and interviews. Both Meher and Arman began preparing. But for Meher, a storm brewed inside. She asked herself again and again, should I fight for what I deserve? Or should I let Arman have it, knowing his need is greater? One evening, Sana, her best friend, said, "Meher, don't be foolish. You worked hard for years. This is your chance. Don't throw it away." Meher replied softly, "Sometimes life is not about what we deserve, Sana. Sometimes it is about what others need more." But her heart remained confused. Meanwhile, Arman worked harder than ever before. For the first time in his life, he studied late into the night, wrote notes, and practiced speeches. Meher watched him from a distance. She realized this was not the same boy who once laughed at everyone. This was someone who had learned from pain, someone who wanted to stand on his own. Still, whispers in college grew louder. Arman cannot win. He is only here because of his contacts. Others said, Meher will crush him easily. The pressure increased on both of them. Finally, the day of the final presentation arrived. The hall was full of students and teachers. One by one, the candidates walked onto the stage. When Meher's turn came, she spoke with grace. Her words were clear, her ideas strong. Everyone clapped loudly. Then Arman's turn came. He walked onto the stage nervously, but when he began speaking, something magical happened. His words carried honesty, not pride. He spoke about failure, about patience, about the lessons he learned from life and from people like Meher. His voice trembled at times, but it touched everyone's heart. When he finished, the hall was silent for a moment, then filled with applause. Even Meher clapped with a small smile. She knew the boy who once mocked her was no longer the same. After the event, results were to be announced the next day. Both waited in silence, hearts heavy with uncertainty. That night, Meher stood near her window, looking at the stars. She whispered to herself, if I lose, it's all right. If I win, I will share it. Because sometimes, winning alone means nothing. Winning together means everything. But deep down, she knew, tomorrow would change everything. Whether she or Arman won, life would never be the same again. The morning of the results arrived. The whole college buzzed with excitement. Students filled the hall, whispering, laughing, waiting for the announcement. At the front, a large banner read, Scholarship Award Ceremony. Meher sat in the second row, her hands folded in her lap. Her face looked calm, but inside her heart beat like a drum. She reminded herself again, whatever happens, accept it with patience. Arman sat a few seats away, restless. He kept tapping his foot nervously. This was the first time he had worked so hard for something real. He wanted to win, not to prove himself better than Meher, but because he knew his family needed this chance. He looked at Meher once, and for the first time, there was no competition in his eyes, only respect. The principal stepped onto the stage. The crowd grew quiet. Today, he began, we announce the winner of the scholarship. Both final candidates showed remarkable strength, courage, and talent. But as rules demand, only one name can be chosen. The silence was heavy. Every ear waited for the name. And the winner is, the principal paused, Meher Ali. The hall erupted with applause. Students cheered, some shouted her name. Meher's eyes widened, but she did not smile. She stood slowly, her heart heavy. She had won, but for some reason, victory did not feel like joy. She walked onto the stage. The certificate was handed to her. Everyone clapped. But instead of raising it proudly, she turned to the microphone and said softly, thank you. I am honored. But today, I cannot accept this scholarship alone. The hall fell silent. Teachers exchanged confused looks. Meher continued, her voice steady. This scholarship was meant for the student who showed not just intelligence, but also courage and strength. I worked hard, yes. But I am not the only one. Someone else fought harder, not against exams, but against himself. Someone who learned patience, who changed his life, who inspired even me. That person is Arman. Gasps filled the room. Arman froze in his seat. His heart pounded. Meher held the certificate in her hands, then turned toward the principal. If possible, I request you to share this award. Because victory means nothing if it cannot change lives. And Arman's life needs this chance more than mine. The hall burst into whispers. The principal looked stunned, but then his face softened. He stood and said, rarely do we see such generosity. True success is not only about winning, but also about lifting others. Therefore, from today, this scholarship will be shared between both candidates, Meher and Arman. The crowd erupted in applause, louder than before. Some students had tears in their eyes. Teachers clapped with pride. Arman slowly walked onto the stage. His eyes were wet. He stood beside Meher, unable to speak. Finally, he whispered, Why would you do this for me? Meher looked at him, her eyes calm. Because sometimes, Arman, winning together is greater than winning alone. His lips trembled. He wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small. Instead, he bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect he had never shown anyone before. That day marked a new beginning for both of them. Meher continued her studies with the same patience and calmness. People respected her not only for her intelligence but for her heart. She became an example for others, not just a bet winner, but a symbol of quiet strength. Arman, on the other hand, worked harder than ever. He used the scholarship to support his father's treatment and his family's needs. Slowly, he built himself into a man who valued kindness over pride. People who once followed him for his arrogance now followed him for his honesty. One evening, months later, the two of them met again at the cafe where everything had begun. The same corner, the same laughter of students around, but this time, things were different. Arman looked at her with a gentle smile. Do you remember the first day? I told you no girl could beat me. Meher laughed softly. Yes. And do you remember what I told you? That silence is stronger than noise. He nodded. You proved it. And you also proved something else, that sometimes the real bet is not with others, but with ourselves. They both sat in silence, sipping their tea. No more bets, no more pride, no more games. Only mutual respect, and perhaps, something deeper quietly growing between them. And though no one said it aloud, everyone who knew their story agreed on one thing. She was the bet winner, and he could never believe how that one bet changed both of their lives forever.